traditionally, in pre-colonial Philippines, we don't even have a concept of retirement. There's not even a Filipino word for it. That's why we borrowed pagretiro, pagiging retirado, which is Spanish.
Yes.
So the closest word or concept would be pagpapahinga. And that would have some connotation of how we view retirement. It's something, a period to just relax, being laid back.
Or relief, right, from work.
Totally different from what you did before. But of course, then people got employed during the Spanish colonial period and the American colonial period. And of course, we have this period of being retired from work as well. But there's quite a mismatch because generally Filipinos only think about the present, the immediate past, and the immediate future, but not the distant past and the very far future. So this is why there's this problem that they only worry about retirement when it's
2-3
already
years
there,
from now.
about 1 or 2 years from now, which is too late.
Do you think that's changing also now?
Well, there's a changing demographics of the Filipino family, partly because of global diaspora of Filipinos. In the past, the family was intact. Inside the household, it's the nanay, the tatay, the lolo, the lola, the kuya, the
dog
ate,
and the cat.
as well as bantay and muning, supporting one another. But now we have families headed by single women, families with a yaya in charge, parents are not there. So different kinds of families, and so with these changes comes a change in adaptive mechanism on how to cope with retirement.
Dr. Castro, do you think it's also try to reduce the amount of complacency in the culture now, in the sense that things are finite, you can't necessarily rely on one generation? Has that really brought the things, especially the OFW diaspora?
Yes, that's very true. Because in the past, the Philippines was depicted as, if you remember your elementary days, the Philippines is a rich country. That's how we were brought up. But it was,
Revisionism.
it was because that was true before. But what is not instilled on children is that resources are finite. So that's why people were complacent before. It's the image of a tropical paradise, but it's no longer like that. Even if we go to the provinces, yes, there's food, but they also need money. Money to spend, which is not readily available.
So they're busog, but they don't have cash.
Yes, which they would need for the education of their children, and especially when they get hospitalized.
Dr. Castro, does it also play to the equation that people are living longer also? Before, the mortality rate was high during colonial period, so therefore now you have more dependence. Did that really change the psyche a bit?
That's very true, because if you study our history about our heroes, most of them died at the age of 40.
It's not just because they were holding guns,
Yes,
no?
yes, because life expectancy was very short compared to today. So we have now a lot of families with lolos or even grandlolos, and many children or grandchildren don't know how to support them or deal with them.
And you're saying all of these concepts have something to do with our national identity. And I find that very, very interesting.
There's this study by Father Frank Lynch about the 3 main goals of the Philippine value system. Of course, economic security is one of the values of Filipinos, but it is only second to social acceptance. So, for example, the lolo is now retired, so he should be complacent, just going on vacation.
Visiting his children.
But he feels that he has to be accepted by his relatives, his family. So if one grandchild needs something, he feels guilty.
Okay, so the saving face part of the culture is that the one coming in? Yeah.
So
that those roles haven't changed, even though he's not working
changed
anymore. I see. But what does this mean for us? Are we forever relegated to this concept of retirement where we are not prepared for what happens next?
I don't think so. But the problem is, while we have to a certain degree financial planning, but too little of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of retooling our cultural values, there's none of that. I sincerely believe that cultures are not static. All cultures change. But we tend to reproduce and reproduce culture. So, for example, values education for elementary students is very important. But this has disappeared in our curricula. The GMRC that we had before is no longer there.
Sa lolo ko pa yata yun,
Yes.
sir. Wala na yung stockings, di ba? Yun yung naalala ko sa GMRC.
So, studies about how to deal with people. So
Po at opo.
yeah, and also instilling in the children about planning for the future is not there in our curricula. And even inside the family, it's not talked about.
Yeah.
And because there's this vacuum, so all the more that things like we can be dependent on ate who is in
Yes,
Dubai,
Dubai, yeah. Well, it
to
gets
send money home.
it gets reinforced, right?
Because we're a family. Parang
Yes.
ganon. It
And-
gets reinforced kasi walang active movement.
Yes,
eh.
and if ate is not yet in Dubai,
Yeah.
the resort of the family is
To send her
someone.
there.
Yeah.
Kaya the Japayu, the
Yes,
Japan.
yes.
Yeah.
Which
I don't wanna
people don't look at negatively, the
Yes.
Japayuki
Yeah.
concept, but they're saviors of their families.
That's true.
I suppose you look at the language also. I think Mina Ramirez, another sociologist, was talking about using the words like work is hanap buhay, right?
Yes.
So we don't have an equivalent yet for retirement. What is the mitigating thing to do to really reinforce that? Is it changing the educational system? What specific things would you
I
recommend?
think, of course, I'm an educator. That's why I'm biased on how to retool the educational system. But I think it should be an integrated thing. Government has a role in it. The church has a role in it. Mass media has a role in it.
Families.
And the families, of course, will be the most basic thing. How children are taught by their parents that these are the things that you should be doing and preparing for. For example, we always talk about this. Is a totally different matter. We always talk about resiliency of Filipinos, that disasters come here
True.
and there, but we
The
survive.
Filipino is waterproof.
Yes, yes. But nothing has changed. Yes, that's positive. We survive, but we don't move forward.
Yeah.
We have to
It's
thrive,
repeating the same
not
thing
just
every year.
survive.
We repeat
It's
everything.
more than just surviving.
Yeah,
Dapat thriving,
Yeah.
di ba?
Yes, and being better.
Being better than that. In terms of the educational system, if you're talking about curricula, what do you think should be put back? Dapat ba may GMRC ulit? Or should
Well,
everything be changed?
It was called GMRC before, but you could call it by another
Values
name.
education.
But for example, we have a lot of senior citizens now in the
Yes.
country, but we seldom hear about their stories. When they retired, what was it like? What were the tensions that they faced? So I've heard a lot of statistics about retirement, but documenting this story so that we learn from them, like what are their fears, how did they overcome it. So I think this could be taught in Araling Panlipunan.
And there
or
are
in
all sorts of
Filipino.
opportunities
Yeah.
with technology there, diba? It can be even more
you can
powerful with
Then you can
videos.
share. Then we're storytelling culture. So those stories can now be transplanted or transmitted to the younger
It's
generation.
true, no? It's like they suddenly disappear from society.
That's true.
That's so
I
sad.
think this is what mass media can also do is tell people about these stories, especially the successful ones, on how they coped, learning from other models of other cultures. Like for example in Japan, so because I'm a professor, of course, Filipino professors tend to look at retirement as time to relax, go on a cruise.
Yeah.
But in Japan, when professors retire, they're transferred to provincial universities so that
The work continues.
other professors
Can learn from
them.
Yeah.
Their body of work
Yeah.
and their knowledge.
So it's quite more relaxed, of course, compared to before, but still you're not useless.